There's a particular moment in historical research when you come across a farming method so rugged, so ingeniously adapted to nature's harshest conditions, that it forces you to rethink everything you thought you knew about survival. Drought isn't a modern crisis. Entire kingdoms have risen and fallen under the weight of failed rains. Yet throughout the ancient world there were farmers who managed to thrive where the sky stayed empty for years at a time. Their methods weren't born from theory, but from relentless necessity. These were people who couldn't afford to gamble on hope. They engineered resilience into every layer of their land. Today, as more of us confront unpredictable weather and water scarcity, those forgotten drought strategies feel less like relics and more like lifelines. If you're watching this as a history lover, a survivalist, or someone who simply respects the resilience of the people who came before us, stay with me. Because these ancient systems hold knowledge powerful enough to sustain communities even now. Ancient farmers survived by shaping the land to capture and store every drop of water. Civilizations in dry regions didn't wait for rain. They designed their landscapes to harvest water from the air, the soil, and the occasional storms that swept through. One of the most widespread methods was contour terracing, practiced from the Andes to East Africa. Farmers carved shallow earthen steps along slopes so that runoff slowed down and soaked into the soil instead of rushing downhill. This simple design stored water underground, where sunlight couldn't evaporate it. Anyone with a hillside today can replicate this by marking level lines across the slope and building low ridges of soil or stone to stop the water. The key was always slowing water, spreading it and sinking it. In the Arabian Peninsula and parts of ancient India, farmers dug long crescent-shaped embankments known as bunds. These earthen arcs caught fleeting rain and directed it toward planting basins. Even with only 1 or 2 storms a year, bunds kept crops alive by forcing rainwater to infiltrate deeply. On a modern homestead, this can be applied by digging shallow swales on contour, letting them fill naturally, and planting drought-tolerant crops, such as sorghum or millet, in the moist soil just behind the ridge. They planted crops and trees that worked with drought, not against it. Ancient farmers didn't waste water on crops that demanded constant moisture. Instead, they selected species that could tolerate stress and still produce food. In the Sahel region, pearl millet became a staple because it can grow on minimal water and still yield grain under scorching heat. In the American Southwest, farmers grew tepary beans, a legume that fixes nitrogen and matures quickly before soils fully dry out. In the Mediterranean, hardy olive trees with deep root systems provided calories during long dry spells. Modern gardeners and homesteaders can take inspiration by choosing crops that don't collapse at the first sign of dry weather. Deep-rooted perennials like moringa or pigeon pea, drought-tolerant grains like sorghum, and hardy legumes such as cowpea offer reliability where other crops fail. Even in small backyard gardens, planting these species in raised mounds or sunken beds can dramatically reduce water use since the soil stays cooler and moisture stays trapped below the surface. They preserved soil moisture through ground coverings that acted as shields against the sun. Drought farming was never just about finding water. It was also about preventing its loss. Ancient Chinese farmers used straw mulches so thick they resembled miniature thatched roofs laid across the earth. Egyptian farmers layered manure, silt and reed cuttings to form moisture-locking surfaces that kept root zones cool. In parts of North Africa, farmers covered their fields with gravel, creating a stone mulch that slowed evaporation and protected young seedlings from extreme heat. The principle is easy to adapt today. A gardener with access to dry leaves, shredded bark or straw can create a 2 to 3 inch mulch layer around crops, reducing water needs by half. On hotter land, a stone mulch works surprisingly well. The stones absorb heat during the day and release it slowly at night, while shielding the soil from wind and sun. This ancient technique is still used in the Canary Islands to grow grapes on volcanic soil that receives almost no rain. If you ever find yourself farming with limited water, the right mulch can make the difference between survival and failure. They built underground storage and used water only when it mattered most. Water scarcity forced ancient farmers to become expert rationers. In the Middle East, they dug underground cisterns to capture storm water and shield it from evaporation. These cisterns were lined with lime plaster and fed by channels carved into hillsides. In parts of North Africa and the Levant, families stored enough rainfall to last an entire year. They didn't irrigate constantly. Instead, they used water at critical growth stages. Seedlings got moisture during establishment. Grain crops received supplemental water during flowering. The rest of the time, plants were left to rely on the soil's natural moisture reserves. Modern farmers can adopt this principle even without ancient stonework. A simple buried tank fed by gutter systems can store precious rainwater for months. Drip lines or clay pot irrigation allow precise watering only when plants need it. Burying unglazed clay pots, known as ollas, between crops is an especially powerful concept borrowed from ancient Mesoamerica. The pots slowly release water directly to roots, saving enormous amounts of moisture. They worked with the climate, not in defiance of it. Perhaps the greatest lesson from drought-era farming is the way people adapted their lifestyles around the land. Planting didn't happen on a calendar date. It happened after certain stars appeared, or when the soil held a specific coolness at dawn. Harvests were staggered, fields rotated, livestock grazed on hardy shrubs instead of irrigated grass. These civilizations survived because they observed patterns and adjusted rather than forcing productivity at all costs. For someone today trying to farm through unpredictable weather, this mindset is transformational. Tracking local rainfall, noting how long your soil holds moisture, observing which crops thrive without intervention, and adjusting planting windows based on actual conditions rather than tradition can dramatically improve resilience. Drought farming is less about heroic effort and more about strategic alignment. Ancient farmers endured centuries of drought not through luck, but through engineering, observation and humility before nature's limits. Their methods remain practical, powerful and accessible for anyone seeking self-reliance today. If this deep dive into drought survival history gave you new insight, make sure to subscribe to Husbandry and share this video with fellow history buffs who want to keep these forgotten skills alive.